Man, it seems like even at the highest levels of golf, golfers are always grinding on something. They're always working on something. They're struggling with things, or they're really trying to get something ingrained into their swing. And depending on what those things are and what your tendencies are, a lot of times you get lost at sea and you can't figure things out. We're going to get into that in this video. Let's get started. Hey everybody, and welcome back to GolfTestDummy, the channel where I use my game to hopefully help your game. I've been a guinea pig, a canary in the coal mine for almost 5 years now on this channel, experimenting with all sorts of different swing methods and little tips and tricks, testing things out to see what works and what doesn't. I'm no pro, but I try to help you figure things out. And before I get too deep into this video, I just want to say that last week's video was the video for you to leave your comments in to be entered into the 10K giveaway. When I hit 10,000 subscribers, we'll announce the winners in a live video. A lot of you made the comment last week, but you haven't subscribed to the other channels that you're supposed to subscribe to in order to be entered in. If you don't subscribe to all three of those channels, you can't be entered into the competition. It would be a real shame if you subscribed to two and left the comment but you weren't in the contest because you did not subscribe to the third channel. So make sure you go back, watch that video, follow the instructions, and do just that to be entered to win those great prizes that I told you about. Now, on to this week's video. I mentioned this, I think maybe in passing, or I hinted at it, or I sort of alluded to it. I'm not sure which it is. Or maybe I just dreamed the whole thing up that I actually mentioned it to you guys. But starting in January of 2024, this next year, so in, well, let's see, a couple of weeks from now, I am going to be embarking on a new adventure. Now, it's not going to be the typical golf test dummy that you've seen over the course of the past 4+ years. I think I'm going to be taking a lot of the things that I've learned in my experiments and my trying all these different methods out, and all the reading and the watching and the listening and the studying that I've done, I think have started to form a picture for me of what most golfers, what most amateur golfers need. Now, I'm not going to be able to help people who are a +2 handicap, more than likely. These are going to be geared more toward beginners and intermediate golfers, people who just took up the game and they want to get to, let's say, an average handicap, an 18 handicap or a 16 handicap, or somebody who's a 15, 16 handicap who wants to get down into the high single figures, or maybe even somebody who's in high single figures that wants to shave several more strokes off and try to get to a low single-digit handicap. It's not going to be some new latest fad system or anything that I'm going to call the GolfTestDummy system or the Chad way or any of those stupid names. I'm not going to be doing anything like that. What I am going to be doing is focusing on what I believe, what I have come to believe are the core fundamentals. And by core fundamentals, the definition that I am using for that is that these are fundamentals that are universal to every golfer out there. If 1% of the golfers can't do this, then to me, it's not a fundamental. It has to be fundamental for everybody across the board. And I know y'all hear the term universal golf swing, and it's sort of like the holy grail of golf instruction, one swing method to rule them all. But I honestly, I don't believe that that is an actual destination that we can arrive at. But I do believe that when you're talking about the core fundamentals, that it should be applicable to each and every golfer out there. It's also going to be about how to work on some strategy, how to approach the mental game, practice, all these things that you're going to need to play good golf. I probably get to practice more than a lot of golfers because I have this in-home simulator. And certainly practice is a big part of trying to improve at golf. Everybody knows that you need to work on things. There are very few golfers out there that are like Brooks Koepka, who can just pick up a club whenever and never hit a driving range and come out and just win major championships and play at a very high level of golf. That is just not very common at all. For most of us, we need to put in some time and some effort. However, one thing that you need to do, especially as a beginning golfer, is to evaluate just how much time and effort you can legitimately put in on a regular basis so that you can temper your expectations around what you're able to do. If you're only able to practice maybe twice a month and play twice a month, you can't expect, at least most people can't expect, to go out and just play lights out golf all the time. You have to, it's not even about just developing skills. It's also about keeping those skills sharp and being familiar with the golf club, the golf ball, playing on course, putting, short game, all of that. When I'm talking about fundamentals of golf, a lot of people, in my opinion, over the years from what I've studied and seen, they talk about grip, posture, setup, squaring the shoulders, getting things stacked up, and they say that those are fundamentals. However, in previous videos, if you've watched, you can go back and find videos that I've made that talk about maybe they may not have a leg, or they may not have both legs, or they may have to be strapped into a chair that swivels around on a cart, or maybe they're missing an arm, or maybe they're missing hands, or maybe they don't really have catastrophic injuries like that. Maybe they just have a serious lack of mobility due to age or some sort of chronic illness or something. But those golfers, even blind golfers, people who are blind can go out and play great golf. So the hand-eye coordination, I've had to change my terminology. I used to say you need some decent hand-eye coordination, but really, it's not hand-eye coordination, it's just coordination. Those people can't work on posture and setup and stance, and some of them can't even work on grip. So how can those things be quote-unquote fundamentals? If you're only teaching to 70 or 80 or 85% of the golfing population, and the rest of you are just kind of like, well, just figure it out, you're weird. You know, I mean, is it really a fundamental at that point? Is that really the only golf instruction that's out there? And I just don't feel like that should be the case. I think when you use the term fundamental, it has to be something that applies to everybody. And for that reason, when you're talking about the fundamentals have to apply to only the golf club. They can't refer to people's bodies or motions or movements. The fundamentals have to be the golf club. And that's it. The motion of this club, where the low point in relation to the golf ball is, where this club's going to strike, the path that this club is taking, the speed at which the club head is traveling, the orientation of the face relative to path, all of those are in relationship to the club, not a person's body or movements or functions or speed or age or ability levels. None of that can be fundamentals. People talk about, oh, the grip is a fundamental, yet there's people who have really weak grips, and then there's people who have really strong grips, and then there's people who use an overlap or an interlock, there's people who use an overlap, there's people who use a 10-finger, there's people that use a split grip. I even played with a golfer one time who was a professional, and he played cross-handed. And I'm starting to see more people now sort of play cross-handed. How then can a grip be a golf fundamental when a perfectly able and capable person, capable of doing anything physically, and at a professional high level is playing with a grip that doesn't even match up with 99.9% of the rest of the golf population? How can the grip then be a fundamental? And the setup. How far apart you put your feet. Mo Norman put his really wide. There are tons of golfers that put theirs really narrow. Rocco Mediate, every time he takes a little waggle, he moves his right foot back to where he's almost facing away from the target. So he's super closed. And then there's people that are super open, and they play to a high level, they play at the average level, they play at the beginner level. So even your footwork, your stance, all that is not a fundamental. How about the lower body drives the swing versus the upper body drives the swing? Well, those aren't fundamentals either, because you can name a bunch of golfers that play to a high and intermediate level that use upper body, and then you can name a whole bunch that play with their lower body. Is it in the hands? Is it in the feet? You can find all these examples of coaches and players that are fine examples, great players, down to good players, down to beginning players that play with all these different types of body movements, motions, and setups. It's not about the body, it's about the club. You have to refer to what you need the club to be doing in relation to the golf ball if you want to talk about fundamentals. Now again, I'm not a golf pro. I'm a single-digit handicapper that has tried a lot of different things and has had a lot of different experiences, talked to, read from, watched from, listened to a whole lot of different people, from beginners all the way up to some top level players. While I'm not a pro, I think that I still have the ability to help certain golfers to play decent golf. Now, look, there's a big difference too. This is something that needs to be talked about. There's a big difference between a really good golfer and somebody who is an aspiring or current professional that plays at the highest elite level. You can play some really good golf. You can be a scratch golfer using very, very simple methodologies without having a ton of distance, without having every shot in the book, just by having some of the good fundamentals that are consistent and in place, as well as strategies and emotional control and all of these other things, and a little bit of practice and familiarity with it. But you don't have to hit the ball a country mile. You don't have to have every shot in the bag to be a scratch golfer. But you do need some coordination. That is true. If you have zero ability to be athletic in the least, I'm not saying it's impossible for you to be a good golfer. Just saying you're going to have a whole other set of challenges that's really going to make it more difficult. And I truly believe you have the ability, if you apply yourself, to be a very good golfer. But we get sidetracked. We get thrown off course. We get sabotaged so many times because there is so much information out there and it all contradicts itself and it's all very confusing and it really pulls everybody in a million different directions. How often have you thought, oh, that was it, I just need to do this one thing, and then that straightened out my whole golf swing, only to find that a couple of days later, or maybe even a couple of shots later, it's not working anymore and you got to find something else. Are those body-based movements most of the time? Or are those club-focused movements most of the time? Because to me, if you're focused on what the club is going to do to the golf ball, I'm a believer that the body will figure out how to support what you need the club to do. So to me, it's club-centric, it's club first, it's club fundamentals, and then the rest will figure itself out. That's why you have so many different swings on tour. You have so many different swings from some of the better golfers you see out in the real world that aren't on tour. It's because if you figure out how this needs to move and how it needs to interact with that, everything that you do naturally will figure out how to support that. Guys, I got a whole bunch of stuff coming out next year about this. I'm going to go further in depth. There's going to be lots of other stuff. There's going to be some on-course things, how to get out of trouble, some smart plays, some different strategies, when to take your medicine, yada, 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 all that stuff on the course. I think I've got just an endless amount of videos that I can make off of that will be so helpful to you guys. I really do feel like this is the best way that I'll be able to help my subscribers and viewers going forward. I appreciate all the support. And again, if you want to be in the contest, make sure you go back to the previous video. It's got a big blue thumbnail that says 10K giveaway on it. Go into that video, watch it, listen to the instructions. There's 3 channels you got to subscribe to, and they'll be able to check. And then you need to come back and put I subscribed in all capital letters in order to be entered into the contest. Right now, I've got quite a few entries, but honestly, looking at some of the people that have subscribed to some of the channels, the number is actually a lot smaller of people who are actually eligible. So do not let this kick you out of the contest. Go subscribe to those channels and leave me a comment on that video. It can't be on this video. It's got to be on that video. That's the one everybody's checking. Be sure to do that Like this video down below if you haven't already. Leave me some comments. Give me your thoughts. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this around to your friends and people that might need some help or people that might be interested in watching a moron on camera. And I'll see you in the next video.